Hello and welcome to day 20 of this Unity game development journal. So, what did I do today? Well, yesterday I was talking about it would be nice to go from this scene back to the main menu to check out the saves and stuff. And a game typically handles that with a pause screen with some buttons that go either resume playing or quit back to the main menu. So that's what I wanted to do today. So I worked on that. Now, there are some complications that arose. Again, like any of these things, having to tie in a new feature into the existing structure of your game, that is where most of the complications will come. I had most of it set up, and the way I want to tackle the pause screen was very, very simple. It's probably one of the easiest things you could do or I've done so far. And then it was just a matter of getting it to work with the scene transitions. Now the issue comes up. If you had noticed there, if I'm in the game scene here and I go into the game, if I had used the pause screen from here, it would have caused an error because of the scene switching, how that's set up in my game. Now most people handle this on basic tutorials by just simply switching the scene from here using the scene manager. Now my game does not use the scene manager in every single scene. What it does is it has a main controller that manages switching scenes. So what I need to do is change my code around a little bit that had a singleton for the main controller, and then what I could do is switch from any scene whatsoever. I could, as soon as I start in any scene, it goes to the main menu and I start it just like anything. That way I don't have to actually go physically back to the scene, the main scene, and start from stage 1 all the way through. I can jump in at any point in development and it just works. So that was the tricky part today of having to get that bit working, but that's just code refactoring, easy stuff. The well, not easy stuff, I should say. That's probably the most complicated bit of this pause screen thing. So let's just go in and show you. So I'm going to play here, and you can see it just jumps over to get me back to the beginning automatically. The game won't have that jump. It'll just start here, the actual finished game. So I have this deleted scene, which I don't really care about right now, but let's just go in here, and we have the game. Yay. This is all still working. Perfect. I can spawn a nice gem there. And then if I hit the escape button, escape is typically the pause button on computer games. So I just have a nice pause screen. It just fades the screen down to a bit darker. It has a title, adventure paused. I can resume the game, or I can quit to menu. So let's just resume the game. You can see that perfectly here. And then I can try again or quit to menu, and it takes me back to here. So very, very basic, but like I said, tying it in so it just works from any point in the game is the tricky part, and that's what you want to do, because in development you don't want to have to go back to the original scene every single time. Or this might change in the future. Once I have a bunch of game scenes, this might not still work, but for now that's sort of what I had to do. I'm just going to show you the code real quick because it's so basic. Let's go to, where did I have it? These are all the files I had to edit to get this to work. So the very first file here, the pause controller, that's what I built here, this tiny little file. And then I had to go through and edit all of these files just to get it to work properly. And it's not because this was complicated, it's because I want to change the way that the whole game worked. Just tweaking little things in each file to make sure that I could access it from anywhere, and this change scene thing worked properly. So essentially I have a pause controller, I have a canvas, which is what comes up with the text and the buttons and all that. I'm just making sure that, let's just see here, yeah, I'm pretty sure I set the canvas in the inspector. Now the opposite way you could do it is have it so it finds the canvas here. I actually did that originally, and I found it did cause an error, and when I read up on it more, I understood why it's not a good idea to do that in the code, because you're sort of hard coding that connection on how those the child objects will be with the parent objects. And if that ever changes, then you have to go change your code, which is a bad way of writing a program. What you want to do is have the code always stay the same, and if you change the project structure at all in the game objects and the like in the Unity navigation, then, or the tray, whatever they call it, what do they call this thing? The hierarchy, then it doesn't affect your code at all. The worst thing to do is to change that hierarchy and all of a sudden your code breaks. So that's why it's not the best idea to always look for these canvases and stuff inside your awake function. You should actually just have it so you just plop them in the inspector instead. So here's a little tip for you. Then I have this update which just checks the game controller, the current game state, and that's running off my game controller, which is different than a lot of people do this. A lot of people have a boolean inside this pause controller, and they just say, is the game paused or isn't it paused, and they switch back and forth. Mine, I actually have it switch a game state, and a lot of things use that. So my inputs use it. A lot of different things in the game are going to be able to look at that. So it's important for me to do it this way. And then I can set the canvas active or not, depending on if that game state is paused or play or whatever. I have the two buttons here. So the buttons actually, on click, they call these functions. So resume game and quit game. The resume game is simply going to call the set game game state to play. So it just resumes. And then the quit game is, it grabs the next scene name, which is menu scene, and then it switches by that name. Now this is a little fishy of actually typing it out here. Maybe I should have that be a drop-down selection in an enum, or have it so I can enter it in the inspector. One of those two things might be a better way to go than this. Anyways, the only thing that's not implemented here is stopping actual game time. So I haven't done that on a lot of things yet. So far I've just been making it so the player can't control anything at that point. But AI can still move if game's time is still set to 1, meaning that you could still get hurt or things. And I like that for interactions, like reading signs, working with inventory and things like that. I don't mind it if the player could still get hurt in that state. But pausing really should pause everything. So one thing I should do here is set the time to 0 for the time scale. I wonder if that time scale. Let's just see here. Time scale, I can set it to equal 0. Oh no, that's just 1. Okay, and then I'll see if I can do this here if it breaks it. So in here, if I actually this is always going to be updating, so I could just do it right in this function here. What you want to do is make sure that you always set it back if you whoops, that's 1. And then I'm going to, just for a little bit more completion here, in quit game, I'm going to actually set it to 1 as well there. And I'll move it down to after we switch scenes here. Just to make sure, because I don't know if this, if all of a sudden this does not run, this update, and then it gets rid of the controller. We want the time scale to be back to normal there. So what I can do is go in and test this. I do have a way I can test this. So the gem has an animation that that goes, and that animation should stop. So I'm going to go down here and get through this cutscene, and we'll plop this down, and you can see there's the animation. So hopefully I'll be able to see this. Let's move down here, and I'll hit escape, and the animation is not going anymore, meaning that I've stopped time successfully. If I wanted to test that that is actually working there, I could go like this. Okay, I've seen the animation worked again. So this is where it does it. It turns off time there. And I can go back in and test this real quick. Okay, so we'll go into a new game here. Go down, spawn that, and pause it. And we should still see the animation going. See? The bottom there. So that's just how you can stop everything in the game. It just sort of pauses everything as you set time to 0. Now, I do see people use this a lot, and really, in my opinion, the best time to use this is during a pause. I feel that you shouldn't use it too often, because, like, why do you want to stop everything in the game just because your character is doing an action? Sometimes it makes sense. Just make sure you think about it before you start throwing this time scale equals 0 all over the place. Anyways, that's all for today. So I got the pause function completely working. It works, transitioning, everything awesome. So that's day 20. And we're really starting to get a lot of these core features completed in preparation of doing like a minimum viable game. And then the next step after that would be the full game. So thanks for tuning in. Again, subscribe if you want to stay tuned on the progress of this game. And comment if you have any questions or concerns. And like the video if you found this interesting. Thank you very much. Talk to you later.